The $470,000 car was not the problem. The payroll code behind it was. Insurance fraud risk mitigation was my job, but payroll fraud was not supposed to park outside our office. I saw it at 7:48 on a gray Tuesday morning on Wacker Drive, for weeks after Northgate Risk Systems froze every race. Travis Kincaid pulled into the executive garage in a pearl white luxury coupe that looked too expensive for humility. The engine echoed off the concrete like a financial confession. I stood by the elevator bank holding a paper cup of coffee from Union Station. My laptop bag was over one shoulder. My badge still worked. My patience did not. My name is Caleb Mercer. I am 41 years old. For 14 years, I built compensation models and insurance risk dashboards at Northgate. We sold software to carriers who wanted to catch suspicious claims patterns, reserve leakage, and pricing anomalies. My whole career was built on mismatches. Numbers that did not belong together. Claims that moved too cleanly. Expenses that hid under friendly labels. That morning, the mismatch had leather seats and a custom delivery invoice. For weeks earlier, Travis told me there was no room for raises. Not for me. Not for the senior analysts. Not for the people who kept Northgate's systems alive while executives practiced shareholder discipline. Then Human Resources sent me the annual compensation model. New graduate analysts were starting at 50% more than my salary. I checked the file twice. Then a third time. I did not blame them. They were kids with student loans and market timing. Good for them. The lie was not their pay. The lie was Travis saying the company had no money. If you have ever been told to sacrifice while leadership upgrades its lifestyle, stay with me. Because the car was only the shiny part. The evidence lived in a general ledger line. At 8:12, Travis stepped out wearing a navy coat and that clean executive smile people use before saying something insulting. "Morning, Caleb," he said. Early as always. I looked at the car, then back at him. Nice vehicle. His smile sharpened. Client experience asset. That phrase landed wrong. Personal cars do not become business assets unless someone needs the lie to depreciate. Upstairs, Chicago looked cold through the glass. The river was slate gray. The loop was already moving. Inside my inbox, a new expense report waited for variance review. Executive Mobility Demonstration Program. Amount approved. $469,800. Cost Center. Marketing Development. Approver. Travis Kincaid. I sat down slowly. Not angry. Not yet. Anger is noisy. Reconciliation is better. I opened the payroll dashboard, the raise freeze memo, the new graduate offer table, and the vehicle expense line. For Windows. One story. Travis had denied my raise. Then he parked the proof downstairs. I learned to read payroll the same way claim investigators read fraud. Quietly, patiently, and without trusting round numbers. Northgate hired me at 27, back when our office was 3 floors lower and our coffee tasted worse. I was a junior data analyst then, building loss ratio reports for insurance carriers who wanted answers by Monday. I did not have a fancy title. I had spreadsheets, SQL queries, and a manager who said clean data beats loud opinions. That suited me. By 41, I had become Senior Compensation Systems Analyst and Risk Data Lead. It was a strange title, but accurate. I lived between payroll and product. One side told us what talent cost. The other side told us what our risk models earned. When those two stories stopped matching, people like Travis usually appeared. I lived in Oak Park with my wife and our 11-year-old son. Most mornings, I took the green line toward the loop, then walked along the Chicago River Walk when weather allowed. Chicago teaches you to respect systems. Trains, bridges, wind, money. Everything moves until one part fails. Northgate's system looked clean from outside. Glass office on Wacker Drive. Clients across property, casualty, health, and specialty insurance. Demos with polished dashboards. Salespeople saying artificial intelligence like it solved every human mistake. Behind that shine, my team kept the models honest. We tracked claims leakage, suspicious billing clusters, reserve drift, payroll cost allocation, and productivity variance. Nothing glamorous. Everything important. I had supported a forensic accounting review 2 years earlier, after a client billing recovery file failed reconciliation. The numbers were not stolen. They were misclassified. That difference mattered. Misclassification can hide inside normal approval language for months. I never forgot that. I also learned whistleblower protection is not a magic shield. It works only when you follow policy, keep evidence clean, and report through proper channels. Confronting an executive in the hallway feels good for 10 seconds. A documented audit trail lasts longer. That was why I did not say anything when Travis showed up with the car. Not to him, not to coworkers, not to the new graduates. Maya Ellison sat 2 rows from me, fresh from Northwestern, sharp and nervous. Her starting salary was not her fault. She negotiated in the market she entered. I had stayed through outages, client escalations, and weekend fixes. Northgate had priced loyalty like a discount. That was the part people misunderstand about pay betrayal. It is not jealousy. It is arithmetic with a memory. Travis thought salary bands were politics. I knew they were evidence waiting for context. And by 8:30 that morning, context had just rolled into the executive garage. Northgate sold trust to companies that could not afford uncertainty. That was the entire business model. Insurance carriers paid us to find patterns they missed. Suspicious claim clusters, provider billing spikes, reserve estimates drifting away from reality, pricing models that looked profitable until loss development caught up. My team kept those dashboards clean enough for executives to sell and clients to trust. I was not flashy. Nobody put my name on press releases. But when a carrier in Ohio questioned a reserve leakage model at 10:40 on a Friday night, my phone rang. When a health insurer found duplicate billing patterns before renewal week, my query caught it. When a property carrier threatened to cancel a $38 million contract over model drift, I traced the issue to a bad field mapping. Travis called those moments operational resilience. Then he forgot who supplied it. Raises were always coming next quarter. Bonuses were always constrained by timing. Market adjustments were always under review. For 7 years, I heard the same polite language dressed in different fonts. My reviews were excellent. My compensation was responsible. My loyalty was appreciated. Appreciation is cheap when payroll signs it. The new graduates arrived in June with laptop boxes, clean sneakers, and nervous smiles. Maya Ellison was the sharpest of them. She asked good questions and listened before pretending to know things. I liked her immediately. That made the payroll file harder, not easier. Her offer was not obscene. It was market. Mine was the problem. 5 new analysts started at salaries 50% above mine. Not above my old starting salary. Above what I made after 14 years. I checked band placement. I checked job family mapping. I checked location adjustment. I checked equity refresh eligibility. Every answer made the same sound. Northgate had not underpaid me by accident. It had maintained me like legacy software. Useful. Stable. Ignored until replacement got expensive. I requested a compensation review through proper channels. Clean memo. Clear variance. No drama. I listed system ownership, audit support, client retention impact, and market comparison. Human Resources sent the meeting invite. Travis attended instead. That told me the answer before anyone spoke. We met in a glass room overlooking the Chicago River. The water below moved slowly, gray and indifferent. Travis sat across from me with no laptop open. Executives do that when they want the conversation to feel final. "Caleb," he said, "this is not about your value." That phrase never ends well. He told me the company had no budget flexibility. He said new graduate offers reflected market compression. He said long-tenured employees required responsible phasing. I asked what responsible phasing meant. He said patience. I wrote that down. He noticed. "Always documenting," he said. I looked at him. "Always reconciling." He smiled like he had won something. For weeks later, his car appeared downstairs. And suddenly patience had a cost center. Travis Kincaid arrived at Northgate with the kind of confidence that photographs well. He came from a Boston consulting firm where everything had a framework and nobody owned weekends. The board called him a scaling operator. He called himself a disciplined builder. I called him dangerous after his first compensation meeting. Not out loud. Never out loud. Travis spoke in polished phrases that sounded responsible until you matched them against payroll. Lean operating culture. Market-disciplined rewards. Non-cash recognition. Sustainable compensation architecture. The words landed softly. That made them useful. His first move was a raise freeze across legacy teams. Engineering. Support. Risk data. Client implementation. Anyone who had stayed long enough to become essential. Human Resources sent the memo on a Thursday afternoon, right before people left for weekend trains. Temporary compensation pause. Investor review alignment. Shared sacrifice. I read it twice on the Green Line back to Oak Park. Shared sacrifice always means someone else already ate first. By Monday, managers were told to celebrate people with thank you notes and internal badges. Travis called them recognition moments. My team called them stickers for adults. We kept working anyway. A fraud model failed a nightly validation. A carrier in Pennsylvania needed revised reserve leakage outputs. Maya asked me how to interpret a claim severity anomaly. I helped her because none of this was her fault. That mattered. The new graduates were not the enemy. The lie was. For weeks later, Travis rolled into the garage with the $470,000 car and called it a client experience asset. That phrase stayed in my head because it was too specific. Bad lies are vague. Dangerous lies are coded. I opened the general ledger view after my morning stand-up. The expense sat under marketing development, not executive compensation. Executive Mobility Demonstration Program. Approved amount, $469,800. Delivery address, Travis's home in Lincoln Park. Business purpose, strategic client showcase. I stared at that line for a long time. Not because it was flashy, because it was structured. If the car had been purchased personally, it was hypocrisy. If it was coded through company expense during a raise freeze, it was evidence. That was the midpoint I did not recognize yet. The story was no longer about my raise. It was about what Travis told the board. I pulled the board budget memo from our internal reporting folder. Access was part of my role because compensation modeling required executive cost assumptions. The memo said no discretionary executive benefit expenditures were approved during the freeze period. Clean sentence. Signed by Travis. I placed it beside the vehicle expense line. Then I placed both beside the new graduate offer approvals. The timeline began speaking. First, freeze raises. Second, approve higher external offers. Third, deny internal equity reviews. Fourth, code a luxury vehicle outside compensation. Fifth, tell the board executive perks were zero. I did not accuse him. I did not email angry. I created a reconciliation worksheet. Variance. Source. Date. Approver. Financial impact. By 3:17 that afternoon, the worksheet had stopped looking like resentment. It looked like audit. The meeting that finished my patience was scheduled for 4:30 on a Friday. Travis liked bad news near weekends. People had trains to catch, children to pick up, emails they would not risk sending until Monday. The invite said compensation alignment review. That meant no. I walked into the glass conference room with my variance worksheet printed and clipped. Travis was already there, standing near the window with Chicago behind him. The river below looked black between office lights. He did not offer coffee. He did not open a laptop. That was how executives say the answer has already been decided. Human Resources sat beside him with a folder. Not a thick one. Thick folders mean discussion. Thin folders mean performance. Travis started with gratitude, which is where corporate betrayal usually hides its hands. Caleb, your contributions have been meaningful. Meaningful is what they say before making the meaning cheaper. He said Northgate valued my history. He said the market had shifted. He said new graduate salaries reflected competitive hiring pressure. He said internal adjustments required patience. There was that word again. Patience. I placed my worksheet on the table. The first page showed my compensation band variance. The second showed new analysts starting offers. The third showed the raise freeze memo. The fourth showed the executive vehicle expense. Travis glanced at it and smiled with his mouth only. I did not authorize you to review executive mobility planning. It appeared in my variance queue, I said. Coded to marketing development. Human Resources looked down. Travis leaned back. That program is unrelated to compensation. Then why was it approved during the freeze period? I asked. His smile disappeared by a millimeter. Client optics are not employee payroll. Neither are raises, apparently. The room went still. I should not have enjoyed that. I did not. Enjoyment makes people sloppy. Travis folded his hands. If you were truly strategic, Caleb, you would understand sacrifice. He said it gently, like he was offering mentorship instead of insult. I looked at the folder beside Human Resources. Am I being disciplined for requesting equity review? He answered too fast. No one said discipline. Human Resources pushed the folder forward. Performance improvement conversation. Not a warning. Not formal action. Just enough paper to make me feel smaller. I read the first paragraph. It said I had become rigid, financially reactive, and insufficiently aligned with leadership priorities. I almost laughed. Those were expensive words for employee notice the math. I did not sign. I wrote received for review only on the acknowledgement line. Travis watched the pen move. Always protecting yourself, he said. Always protecting the record, I answered. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. I stood too. Through the glass, I could see the executive garage entrance far below. Somewhere under us, that pearl white car was parked under company lighting. Travis thought it made him look powerful. To me, it looked like a receipt with wheels. I left the room without raising my voice. Back at my desk, Maya asked if I was okay. I told her the model needed cleanup. That was true, just not the model she meant. I did not report Travis that Friday. Friday reports become weekend rumors. Weekend rumors become Monday denials. I waited until Monday at 7:05, when the office was quiet and the river still looked half asleep. Good evidence deserves a clean morning. I opened Northgate's internal ethics portal, the one buried behind 4 policy links nobody reads. The form asked for category. I selected financial reporting concern, then compensation equity concern, then potential expense misclassification. The system asked for narrative. I gave it dates. Raise freeze memo. New graduate offer approvals. Performance conversation. Vehicle invoice. General ledger coding. Board budget memo. No adjectives. No guesses. No accusation I could not support with a record. I attached only documents I was authorized to access through my role. Payroll variance summary. Compensation band compression chart. Marketing development expense line. Vendor invoice. Delivery address. Travis's approval record. Board memo signed by Travis. I did not include anyone's private salary details beyond anonymized bands. People deserve privacy even when executives deserve scrutiny. Then I sent a separate note to Lena Morris, internal audit manager. Lena had been at Northgate 11 years and smiled exactly twice per quarter, both times during clean reconciliations. She replied in 9 minutes. Come to my office at 8 o'clock. Her office sat behind legal, away from the glass rooms where executives performed leadership. She read my worksheet without interrupting. Halfway through, she took off her glasses. That was Lena's version of shouting. When she finished, she asked one question. Did Travis know you had the board memo? It is in the approved reporting folder, I said. She nodded. That was not the question. I understood then. This was not only about my raise. It was about what Travis had told directors while moving executive benefits elsewhere. Lena opened a preliminary audit case. She used words that sounded boring enough to survive lawyers. Compensation variance review. Expense classification testing. Executive approval sample. Board representation alignment. Boring words are useful. They walked past panic without waking it. By noon, she had pulled general ledger support. By 2:15, she had requested the vehicle program file for marketing. By 4:40, someone in Travis's office tried to reclassify the expense as client relationship operations. Too late. Lena had already captured the original code. Audit logs do not care about embarrassment. Maya stopped by my desk before leaving. She held a notebook against her chest. I heard people say there is a review, she said. Am I in trouble? No, I said. You accepted a fair offer. That is not trouble. She looked relieved and ashamed at the same time. Do not be ashamed, I said. The problem is not what they paid you. It is what they told everyone else. She nodded slowly. Then she said something that mattered later. My offer was approved before the freeze email. I kept my face still. Are you sure? She opened her onboarding folder and showed me the date. Approved 8 days before Travis told us the freeze was necessary. I did not copy her file. I did not ask her to send it. I told her to keep it safe and speak to Lena if asked. At 6:12, Lena called me from audit. Her voice was lower than usual. Caleb, this is no longer a payroll complaint. I looked through the window at the executive garage exit below. The pearl white car rolled out into traffic like a lie leaving the scene. Lena finished the sentence. This is board reporting. By Tuesday morning, Lena had built a case file clean enough to make silence nervous. She did not call it fraud. Good auditors do not reach for the biggest word first. They build stairs to it. Her first tab was compensation variance. Long-tenured employees sat below market by double digits. New graduate analysts sat above them by enough to make every loyalty speech look obscene. Her second tab was timing. Offer approvals landed before the freeze memo. Travis had known external hiring costs before telling internal teams sacrifice was necessary. Her third tab was expense classification. The vehicle sat under marketing development, then briefly shifted toward client relationship operations after the ethics report. The audit log preserved both. That was not a mistake. That was movement after exposure. Her fourth tab was board representation. No discretionary executive benefit expenditures were approved during the raise freeze period. Signed by Travis Kincaid. Date stamped. Uploaded to the board portal. Lena closed the file and looked at me across her desk. "This is bigger than one car," she said. I said nothing. She knew I already understood. The car was just the receipt bright enough for everyone to notice. By noon, outside compensation counsel was involved. By 3:30, a forensic accounting firm had requested read-only access to selected general ledger entries. Northgate's legal team issued a preservation notice across finance, human resources, marketing, and Travis's office. Email, approval workflows, vendor records, board materials, expense support, no deletions, no edits, no cleaning history after the spill. Travis noticed before lunch. Men like Travis can smell process turning against them. He walked past my desk twice without stopping. Both times, his face stayed calm and his jaw did all the talking. At 4:05, Human Resources canceled my performance improvement follow-up. No explanation. Calendar invite removed. That was my first quiet victory. Not because I wanted protection, because records were changing shape. Maya met with Lena on Wednesday. She did not bring gossip. She brought dates. Her offer letter approval. Her recruiter email. Her onboarding compensation worksheet. All approved before Travis told legacy teams the freeze was unavoidable. Maya apologized to me afterward in the break room near the vending machines. I told her again she had nothing to apologize for. Getting paid fairly is not betrayal. Lying to underpaid people is. The preliminary findings reached Victor Hale on Thursday morning. Victor chaired the board audit committee and looked like a man who ironed his calendar. He requested a special session at Willis Tower for Friday. Travis tried to narrow the agenda to employee compensation concerns. Victor widened it to executive representations and expense governance. That phrase traveled through the office like cold weather under a door. Lena called me into her office before I left. She handed me a final packet for review. I read the sequence slowly. Freeze memo. Offer approvals. My raise denial. Performance conversation. Vehicle invoice. Reclassification attempt. Board memo. Everything fit. That was the problem for Travis. Nothing had to be interpreted generously. It only had to be read in order. Lena asked if I was ready to speak if called. I looked out at Wacker Drive, where headlights crawled beside the Chicago River. I thought about 7 years of patience. 14 years of clean data. One luxury car parked under company lighting. I nodded. Victor had one question waiting. Can you prove intent? I already knew my answer. I could prove sequence, coding, approval authority, and financial impact. Intent could explain itself. The special session started at 8:30 Friday morning on the 42nd floor of Willis Tower. Chicago looked small from that high up. That always helps executives feel distant from consequences. Victor Hale sat at the head of the table with a legal pad and no expression. Lena sat to his right. Outside compensation counsel sat beside the forensic accounting partner. Travis arrived 3 minutes late, carrying confidence like a briefcase. He looked at me once, then looked away. Good. He had finally learned not every analyst was scenery. Victor opened the meeting without small talk. We are here to review compensation governance, executive expense classification, and board representations. Travis smiled politely. I appreciate the chance to clarify a misunderstanding. Lena did not react. Auditors save their faces for retirement. She began with salary compression. Charts appeared on the screen. Senior internal employees below market. New graduate hires above experienced team leads. Raise freeze applied broadly. External offers approved earlier. Travis called it market necessity. Lena moved to timing. Offer approvals before the freeze memo. Travis called it sequencing complexity. Lena moved to the performance conversation file. My name appeared. Rigid. Reactive. Insufficiently aligned. Victor looked at me. Did this meeting occur after you requested equity review? Yes, I said. Did you receive formal discipline before raising compensation concerns? No. Travis shifted in his chair. Then the forensic accounting partner took over. He displayed the vehicle invoice. $469,800. Pearl white luxury coupe. Delivery address in Lincoln Park. Cost center. Marketing development. Approver. Travis Kincaid. Travis leaned forward. It was a client experience asset. The partner clicked once. The next slide showed garage access logs. The vehicle entered Northgate's executive garage 6 times. It entered Travis's home garage 23 times. Nobody spoke for 4 seconds. Then Victor asked the question that made the room smaller. Which client experienced it in your driveway? Travis opened his mouth, then closed it. Counsel looked down. Lena continued. The expense was later reclassified toward client relationship operations after the ethics submission. Audit logs preserved the original code, edit time, and user approval path. Travis said nothing. Silence from a man like that is never empty. It is calculation looking for an exit. Victor turned to me. Caleb, what can you prove? I kept my hands folded. Sequence, coding, approval authority, and financial impact. Not motive. Not character. Not rumor. Just the record. Victor nodded once. Then he opened the board memo. The one Travis had signed himself. No discretionary executive benefit expenditures were approved during the raise freeze period. He read the sentence aloud, slow enough that each word had to stand alone. Travis finally spoke. That language referred to compensation benefits, not operating assets. Outside counsel looked up. Then why was it kept outside executive compensation review? Travis had no clean answer. That was the final turn. The car had not exposed his spending. His own memo had exposed the lie around it. Victor did not shout. That made the room worse for Travis. The board audit committee chair simply closed the memo and asked outside counsel for next steps. Counsel used quiet words. Administrative leave. Independent review. Expense reclassification. Retaliation assessment. Compensation equity exposure. Each phrase landed flatter than anger and heavier than blame. Travis tried one more time to explain. He said the vehicle program was strategic. He said executive mobility was client-facing. He said the timing was unfortunate. Victor looked at the garage log again. 23 home entries. 6 office entries. 0 documented client demonstrations. Timing was not the issue anymore. Structure was. By noon, Travis was placed on administrative leave. His access changed first. Then his calendar disappeared. Then his assistant stopped taking messages. Corporate consequences rarely arrive as thunder. They arrive as permissions quietly disappearing. The car was returned to the vendor under legal review. The expense moved out of marketing development and into executive benefit review. The forensic accounting partner expanded the sample to all executive discretionary spending during the freeze period. That was when Northgate learned the car was not alone. There were private travel upgrades coded as client research. A country club event buried under market development. Consulting dinners with no client attendee list. None as expensive as the car. All signed under the same culture of clever labels. The compensation review took 8 weeks. It found what every long-tenured employee already knew. Loyalty had been priced below replacement. Northgate created a retroactive adjustment pool for undermarket staff. Senior analysts received equity reviews. Bonuses were restored for teams tied to client retention. Salary bands were rewritten with governance checks no single executive could bypass. Maya came to my desk after the announcement. She looked nervous again. I told her the same thing I meant from the beginning. Your offer was never the problem. She smiled like she finally believed it. Travis resigned before the final report reached the full board. His online profile changed by Monday. Strategic operator. Growth advisor. Executive transformation leader. Corporate America has many names for men who mistake accounting codes for hiding places. I was promoted to director of compensation governance. It sounded more impressive than it felt. Mostly, it meant more meetings and better audit trails. I accepted anyway. Some systems cannot be repaired from the hallway. You need access to the controls. My first policy update was simple. Any executive benefit during compensation restrictions required audit review, compensation council sign-off, and board disclosure. Human resources hated the extra steps. Finance loved the clarity. Employees loved something else. Their paychecks changed. Mine did too. Not as a gift. As a correction. On the first Friday after the adjustment posted, I left the office late. Wacker Drive was wet from afternoon rain. The Chicago River reflected office lights in broken lines. Downstairs, the executive garage looked ordinary again. No pearl white confession waiting under company lighting. Just concrete, badge readers, and parked cars that belonged where they were. I thought about 7 years of patience. 14 years of clean data. One meeting where Travis told me to understand sacrifice. He thought a raise was expensive. The audit cost him everything. I kept the first variance worksheet in my desk drawer. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. Lies do not always shout. Sometimes they park downstairs with a beautiful paint job and the wrong account code. And when they do, you do not need revenge loud enough for the whole office. You only need the record clean enough that even the board cannot look away.